So as far as the Patriot movement, and that's what LWN is, we are part of many patriots out there searching for the truth and delivering the news like it should be delivered. Miles Franklin Precious Metals Investments. Reach out to LW at lwnreloaded@gmail.com. This week's special is the 2023 Silver Philharmonics. While supplies last, only $3.29 over spot. If you guys would like any help with your 401k, pension funds, retirement funds, you'd like to flip those over to a self-directed precious metals IRA, I would love the opportunity to earn your business. Please reach out to me at lwnreloaded@gmail.com. Congratulations to the January coin giveaway winners. What a wonderful gift you guys received. If you would like to join us in February for the end of the month coin giveaway, you can do that simply by qualifying by purchasing a coffee, buy me a coffee, anytime in the month of February. Or if you're over there on Facebook, if you guys would like to purchase some stars and drop those in chat, that also qualifies you for the month of February coin giveaway. And we'll be doing that right around the 27th or the 28th of February. Don't miss out. Come join us over here at LWN for the monthly coin giveaway. All right, welcome back, America. Welcome back to LWN. We have another reoccurring guest. I really like both of these guys. We have Darin with us tonight. His partner couldn't make it, but they are both co-founders in Restore Liberty, and we've had them on a couple of times now, 2 or 3 times since I met Darin there in Missouri. But I asked them if they could come on and give us an update on the stuff that they're seeing, the stuff that they're dealing with, and the projects that they're working on. So with that being said, Darin, if you want to go ahead and turn your camera on and join me here on stage, we would like to give you a warm welcome back to LWN. How are you doing this evening?
Doing well. Thrilled as always to be here and happy to do what we can to share what our opinions are and the truth as we understand it and let people take it from there.
Absolutely. And on top of that, you guys are engaged out there, boots on the ground, getting things done. I changed my motto here at LWN to unify, educate, and motivate. We want to unify this country. We want to educate everybody we possibly can. And then we want to motivate them to get plugged back into life and get out there and be part of this great nation and have more, I guess, to say and more to do with what's going on in our world than just seeing it from social media.
Yeah, and that's it's hard to say the least. I mean, it's one of the things that happens is most of us think we live in a free nation anymore, and we want to be left alone to raise our families, make a living, and we'd like to be in a position where we could trust our government to do their job to the point where we can be left alone to do those things. But we've come to realize very quickly that that's not the case, and they're more out to get us, I guess you could say, than they are out to serve us. And that's why Restore Liberty was formed 3 years ago and got started, was to build locally in order to restore nationally.
Yeah. You said that you just came, I believe, from the capital there in Montana. So could you, what was going on there in Montana that drew you to the capital? Anything interesting?
Well, I have my first non-volunteer gig for a couple years. So I got hired to be a state director for the State Freedom Caucus Network for the state of Montana, and I was up there working with our Montana Freedom Caucus members and others on policy legislation and things like that. And one of the things I was watching most closely was a bill to make sure that people understood that the right to privacy in the Montana Constitution did not guarantee or cover for a right to an abortion. That was a significant vote in our Senate, and it passed, and it will go forward to our House.
That's a pretty big bill. And this is what we're talking about, folks. I've had other people that I've met recently that have got involved, like Darin is here, and one of them in particular, we just had on recently, and she, for the first time, got together with her legislatures and started helping write a bill. And I thought that was pretty unique for somebody to really step into that gap and help their own legislation in their own state. That's something that you don't hear about every day. That's, a lot of people sit and watch social media and watch TV, and they wouldn't have the first clue on how that process happens. And I was really glad to meet Amber and see her really step up and be part of that process. And then she comes on and she shares that information with the rest of us and educates us on how we could also be part of that process. Your thoughts on that, Darin?
Oh, I think that's critical. In fact, if you really want something, then be the person to write it. I wrote a bill recently that was getting our county commissions out of the selection process for picking partisan replacements if a seat is vacated for whatever reason. So I wrote that bill because we have a so-called nonpartisan county commission here in Lewis and Clark County, Montana, and they are anything but nonpartisan. And I thought it was ridiculous that basically two Democrat county commissioners and one Republican county commissioner had any power whatsoever in picking a replacement for a Republican seat. So I sat down and I learned too. It's not like I've been doing this a long time either. I just found somebody, sat down, and wrote it. Will it survive past its initial draft through the entire process in the exact form I wrote it? Of course not. But it gives them 99% of what we're looking for, and we can work with things like that. And so rather than complain about something, well, let's go out and write something that'll help fix it.
If you wouldn't mind, Darin, I'd like to take a few minutes here and maybe educate my audience on how you go about that, because I could learn myself here. Let's just say that we wanted to write a bill for, say, the speed limit in the state. Maybe we don't like the interstate at 80 mile an hour. Maybe we want to reduce it down to 70 mile an hour, or maybe 80 mile an hour isn't fast enough for some people, and they want to bump it up to 85. Either way, pick or choose. I don't care. We're gonna change the we're gonna write a bill to hopefully change the state speed limit. What would that procedure be for my audience to know how to do something like that? I think it's really awesome to be able to educate the audience on how that looks and what is the full procedure of that.
Yeah, no, and obviously I can only speak from the perspective of doing it in Montana, and each state's procedures and methods may differ some, but from the bigger picture, it's not, I don't think it's significantly different.
So what if you and I, what if you and I sat down and had coffee one day and we wanted to do this? What's the first thing that you and I would do besides writing the idea on the back of a cafe napkin? Is there a form that you have to get off the internet to start writing the bill? Can we just take a blank piece of paper and start drafting it? Just curious.
Well, there are a number of ways, but I guess I'll start with the one that I did. Is I found the existing legislation,
okay,
and I took it and I started doing word replacements to try to make it say what I wanted it to say. And I found out that there was just too much of it. So what I did was basically took the old bill, turned it all red, and said, all this needs to go, and then moved over to a new document, basically saved that same bill twice. One of them turned it all red. The next one, I started striking everything out and created something entirely new, and rewrote all the language except the title. I left the title in place because of what it was addressing was the same topic in the first place. And then and I just wrote it in plain English. In that process, though, you also have to find a legislator at the state level who will carry your bill for you.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're writing this and you love it, you can still say it's a constituent-led bill, but I'm gonna take that bill and I'm gonna give it to a legislator who says, yeah, I will carry that bill, and they'll learn about it, they'll read through it, they'll agree to it, hopefully, and say, yeah, I'll carry that bill, and then they're gonna hand it off to in Montana a bill drafter, and that person's gonna take what you wrote, which looks like your state legal code, and they're going to craft it into a specific format that goes before the legislature. And that way it can be reviewed line by line, and each line is numbered. And people can argue over words or phrases here and there, or add amendments or whatever, that kind of thing. And as it goes through the process, that format will continuously be used until it's either adopted as a law or not adopted as a law. If it's adopted, it'll get changed back into a state code type of a format,
Mm-hmm.
and become state law. So what you can do simultaneously is look, if you're going to change the speed limit, go find out which law establishes the speed limit and see if you can just rewicker the existing law and submit it as a bill draft, and get that progress, or get that process started. If it's buried in somewhere else, or something else strange, just find what your code looks like, and kind of copy and paste it into a Word document and start writing in there what you think it should say. And the professional bill drafters will take that, even just sometimes a pen and ink idea from a legislator with their intent, and they'll be the ones to write that and know how the procedures work.
That's pretty
It's not
cool.
fun, but it can be effective.
Yeah, it's cool how you could take your own idea and maybe there's an existing one, and change it a little bit, or to completely recreate something. So once it goes through that process, do they have to vote on this? Is there a procedure where they vote on this and then the governor signs it into law?
Yes, and that's where probably you're going to find some differences between Montana and other states. Montana requires single subject legislation. So if the title is change the speed limit, you can't shove stuff underneath that title that has nothing to do, that is not germane to the law's purpose in the first place. What that means for us is we often end up with something like 4,500 plus bills to look at, because each one of them is a single topic. Some states allow multiple topics, but it will eventually go through. Huh?
But isn't that the to me that would be the right procedure, because we just seen what happened with legislation with the $1.7 trillion omnibus bill, where there was all kinds of stuff in there that didn't even pertain to any of that stuff. So I would think that Montana having that way of doing things procedure would be, as a Montanan, I would say, hey, they're looking out for my best interest. They're not sitting there trying to slide a bunch of bills through that aren't even being looked at. So some people might think, holy cow, 4,500 bills, that's a lot of bills to look at. Well, didn't we send them there to go to work? I mean, it's work. That's what you should be doing. So
Yeah.
It's something that I think a lot of people don't really recognize or understand how our government works and the procedures that this stuff goes through to become a bill and then become law. And then they want to complain, and I complain. I'm guilty of it. I've complained about some of the things I don't agree with, but until you really plug back into life and try to go in there and make that change, you don't really have a right to complain, because you're telling me, and I totally understand, that any average everyday citizen, if they wanted to make change in their state and their county, they can go in, they can write bills, they can help change bills and get the support from the legislator to get that through that process, and it would become law as long as it's voted on and goes through the right channels. That's change. That's real change. So you guys are making that change there in Montana, or at least overseeing things to make sure that things don't get slid under the carpet when nobody's looking. So thanks for sharing that with us, Darin. I really appreciate it. What else are you guys with the Restore Liberty? What's on your radar right now? What is the things that are really hot and stuff that you want to tell the audience tonight?
Well, I would say that right now our number one thing that we're working on is the county sheriff position. And so, like right now, I'm getting ready to send out 56 letters to 56 counties in Montana and letting them know that who we are and what we're doing. And what we're doing is, first of all, saying that we're going to be talking to people in their counties to figure out how they, as a sheriff, are doing adhering to the Constitution and their willingness to stand between the people and an overreaching government of any level. It doesn't matter whether it's state, local, federal. When someone knocks on your door that's government, you really don't care where they came from. For the most part, most of the time they don't need to be there. So we're going to send them out and the letters and say we're going to grade them. We're simply just going to make a graphic and say, you get an A through F in your duties and adherence to the Constitution. And if you don't like the grade, I'm sorry, then maybe you need to change what you're doing, because we're very disciplined in our approach to doing this. And it's we bring it to the higher principle of Constitution. The law, there are millions and millions and millions of laws on the books, but if you can't adhere to the principles of the Constitution, then well, that's going to be your problem, because that's where we're grading you. But it's not just coming with a hammer in hand either. It's coming with the Constitution in hand and saying, if this is something new to you, we're willing to come to you and actually sit down with you and your deputies, and we're willing to educate you and say, this is what it means. And this is why my co-founder and I are big into this, is because we can come to them with 60 years of military service combined and say, look, we took an oath to this. We educated ourselves on this. We understand what it means. We're here to help you understand what it means too, if you don't already, which is already kind of a scary proposition, that people are taking oaths to things they don't understand, but it happens every day in the halls of Congress and legislatures around the country. So we're going to come and say, we're willing to meet you and teach you and help you and learn from you sometimes too. But we're also not afraid to stand up and say that you have failed your people and your duties. And we found out because your people told us.
Excuse me. That's a really cool way to look at stuff. So Restore Liberty is now going to have a grading scale for county sheriffs, all the counties there in Montana. And on top of it, you guys are willing to cross the aisles, work hand in hand, educate sheriffs and possibly staff too that may not know what the Constitution really reads, and learn from them as much as you possibly can. To me, that is putting action behind your words, and that's actually working together with everybody instead of isolating people or going on the defense or the attack or the offense and going after people. I think that is a great example, that as we educate our audience here at LWN, that's something that all of us can look at and maybe reach out to you guys. I know you guys are more than just in Montana. I know that you guys have been working with organizations all across the country. So as a lot of people I've heard in the last few months, my sheriff isn't constitutional. He's not doing anything for me. He won't protect my rights. This is an effective way to put pressure on them to uphold their oath of office. In some cases, they may have to be removed, but in other cases, they might be very willing to work with civilians and people in their communities to educate themselves and educate other people and say, okay, we're here to do a job, which is uphold the Constitution. We are the first line of defense. So anything that you could maybe advise our audience on how, if somebody's listening tonight, how could they get involved to have a similar blueprint for their state?
Well, first of all, I would tell them just to send an email to patriots@restore-liberty.org, and we can tell you whether we already have somebody in your state directing things for us or not. I will say that we're well advanced, I guess you could say, in Colorado, Mississippi, Kansas is coming along, Idaho and Montana. We're working on it pretty hard, of course. So some states will be further along than others. But if you send a note to that email I just mentioned, and we can tell you who to get in connection with. And if we don't have somebody in a state, then maybe with any luck, we'll find the right kind of folks who are willing to do this in another state altogether. Like I think we just got somebody to help us out in Oklahoma finally. So we think this is a big message. And if you've heard of Sheriff Mack and the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association, we're not in competition with them. He knows what we're doing. We know what he's doing. And in the end, we don't care who wins and who's most effective. If he wins or we win, then everybody wins in this country. And we just got to keep going along those routes. And I would like also to advertise an example of what's great here in Montana for all sheriffs to take a look at. And his name is Sheriff Jesse Slaughter, Cascade County, Montana. The ATF was at a gun show working with the Canadian Royal Mounted Police and taking pictures of license plates and things in the parking lot that they shouldn't have been doing. And to make a quick version of it, he basically kicked them out and said, "No, that's not your job. Thank you very much." And so sounds easy, but it seems these days that courage is either in abundance in a very few or is very hard to find. And that's an example of courage that I think everybody should look at. So look him up. He teaches his deputies on constitutional considerations. And he actually switched from the Democratic Party to the Republican Party up there too, because he said that he couldn't be a Democrat anymore and actually be honest with himself.
And I also want to be clear to our audience too. You and the co-founder, there are no distinct party lines with Restore Liberty. I just want to be clear to everybody listening. This isn't a Republican thing. This isn't a Democrat thing. Darin and his partner got together to make this an American thing. This is something that is a passion for both of you. It doesn't matter what color party you are. We want all people to get involved, correct?
Absolutely. In fact, we have consistently and always been out there saying that both parties have lots of issues to work through. And frankly, if we had our way and could snap our fingers and fix something, we would just get rid of parties altogether and just elect good people to be servants of the American people. You don't need to run around with a label on you that says I'm one or the other. Now, but we also understand that in some cases I've made the argument recently that it's either all partisan elections or no partisan elections. You can't kind of pick and choose because it muddies the water too much. My choice would be get rid of all parties. And that's my preference. And that's our preference as an organization too.
Well, I think we all have our own opinions on why we have parties. My opinion is for the money. They do it for money. It's a money grab. It's control. It's power. I like the thought of just voting for an American. It doesn't matter if it's red or blue, and to dissolve parties and just vote for a person on merit, on character. How would that change America?
What a novel idea.
Right? Oh, that could be amazing, to be honest with you. Now, I know that there was some other things that we'll get to here in just a minute. We're going to talk about the Ukraine here in a minute and some of the stuff that you wanted to touch on, Darin. What else, before we get to that subject, what else with Restore Liberty that is something that may be fresh, new, something that you guys have been working on for a very long time? Want to give us an update? I know that you guys, like I said, this group of people that they have put together are plugged in, very active in their communities. Like he said, they're working on the sheriffs in those states, but I think you guys also have other things that you work on in all the states as well, other than just the constitutional sheriffs, correct?
Oh, for sure. For sure. Yeah. We're looking at school boards and judicial races. And we've got a federal super PAC that's sitting there ready to be utilized to get involved in these kinds of races, because where we find that people can have the greatest impact is not always getting involved in these multi-million-dollar state Senate races or whatever. It's the ability to plug somebody into, like, say, a local library position or something else, but getting somebody onto a school board when you've basically got whoever, a citizen over here, basically fighting the unions. And we find that very disturbing. We think we need to level that playing field and be able to help people running for school board in ways that the unions are helping I guess you could say, their people constantly run for school boards and maintain those positions so they can have power over the parents and children and not actually serve them and educate them. So that's one of them. The judicial side is going to take a little bit longer, because they've been hiding behind their robes for a long time. And essentially, this to us, this is the how to counter Soros at the local level. And we want to be part of that solution. We don't have to be the only, but we want to be part of it. We think that's critical. And a lot of what we're seeing is the ability to get a message out, even if it's a lie, is overwhelming when they have a ton of money behind them. And we don't. So one of the challenges, of course, is that that Marxists fund tyranny fully, and constitutionalists don't seem to want to fund liberty. But we're going to fight anyways.
That's funny that you make that comment, because I had a question for you about finances. But first, before I ask the question, I've had many people that I've come in contact in the last 2 years that have made comment that some of these smaller offices that you're talking about tonight, Darin, whether it's a librarian or it's a county commissioner or it's a treasurer, a lot of these small seats across America run unopposed and all Democrat. And the Democrats seem to win a lot of these seats hands down without any opposition whatsoever, because there's people that in that area just don't want to get involved in politics. They don't want to get involved. They want to stay heads in the sand, staying engaged in social media, living their life. It doesn't affect me. My life is good. And that's an issue. I don't know if you can speak on that, if I'm even in the ballpark there with what I'm saying about some of these offices running unopposed. And there's probably offices out there in the country that run unopposed as a Republican too. So I'm sure there is. But then I want to ask you the question about the finances, because you make a great point. Marxists are fully funding tyranny, but when it seems to come to a patriot movement or fighting for liberties and our freedoms, it just seems like nobody wants to really pitch in. It should just all be free, should all be done free. And when you're in the middle of a war, you have to have a war chest. There's just no way for you to possibly fight an enemy when you don't have a war chest, when you don't have funds. So maybe speak a little bit on, where does Restore Liberty fall in that category? Is this an organization that helps raise funds? Does this organization take funds? Does this organization fund candidates, so that the audience knows exactly where Restore Liberty stands?
Sure, absolutely. Now, to get to your first part, we think it's absolutely critical to really build the groundswell at the local level across cities, municipalities, counties, and on up. And the picture I use to describe this when I'm traveling the country and talking to people is, if you think you're going to drain the swamp in Washington, D.C. by skimming water off the top, it's never going to work, because the way they operate, these leftists, regardless of party, is they're just going to refill that swamp from the bottom, because they're building them from that librarian up. So what we think we need to do is actually just unplug that swamp and start building people at the local level across the country who can do the same thing and move up and push all that stuff out from the bottom. That way we can fill it up in a way that is actually effective. And that is like a librarian. It is, whatever that local race is that people consider insignificant, guess what? That's a resume builder for somebody else. And someone's going to vote for somebody because they're going to be like, oh, I'm just voting for this person because, well, they've been a judge before. Well, yeah, they've been a Marxist judge for years. They've got to, and we've let it roll for a long time without exposing what they really are. And so that is absolutely critical. We can't forget the local build. We've been preaching this for 3 years. This stuff started in January of 2020, well before the Trump election. We knew this was happening. That is one of the differences of our organization is that we tell people like, hey, do you want to support an organization who saw it coming and warned you about it, or the one who joined afterwards? It's up to them, of course. How to support, though. We do believe that a war chest is necessary. And money's been used against us for decades. We shouldn't be afraid to use it back. And the comparison is, you're going into the Coliseum to into a gladiator battle, and your opponent is fully armored and has a sword, and you're walking in with a stick because you don't want to be known as the person who's carrying around a sword. You need to carry around your sword too and match on equal terms.
Amen.
And then it just comes down to other things. But how does that happen for Restore Liberty specifically? Is, well, we have 3 parts to us. The first part is the 501c4 nonprofit, which allows us to endorse candidates. That's how we can grade shares, for example.
Okay.
Because it's a non-tax deductible donation. The advantage is that you don't have to report it as a name if you don't want to be known, and we can do other things in the political advocacy world. The other part of us is the 501c3 nonprofit, which is tax deductible. Both of those are on our website at restore-liberty.org. And you can use that if you want the tax deduction, but that's education. And if we go to a location and coach people about constitutional history and law and whatever that may be, that's just sheer education. And we can use the 501c3 to do that. A lot of that actual teaching we push those through churches as well and talk about getting churches involved. So that's a big deal about how we are doing it, is telling pastors to get outside of their buildings. And the last piece is the Restore Liberty PAC. And as we fight through the grifters, because that's one of the big challenges to the constitutional movement, is to find the ones that are true and the ones that are not. And our PAC is there. Managed out of Florida. We've been involved in a few races with independent expenditures to help specific candidates in specific races that we thought were well targeted to send a message, and they were, and they won. So we can do a lot with a little, and that's the beauty about us, is we're efficient. We don't care about the money as far as making an income. We don't make any income anyways. We care about the money as using it as a tool to advance the cause that we believe in. And that's a big deal to us.
Great point, Darin. And I think you made another great point at the beginning of that comment, which I want to go back to, because there's somebody listening tonight. There's somebody out there that thought, I might want to get involved someday at the state level. Well, what better time than now to get involved at your local level so that you can start building that resume? Because as a journeyman electrician, I had to go through my apprenticeship, and I had to have a resume. I had to go get certain experiences and education through college before I could get to that journeyman level, take the test, and graduate and level up. So instead of you going straight to the top, wanting to be a state representative or a congressman or woman, what's wrong with just working and donating time right there at your local community and becoming a secretary or a treasurer or whatever it is, city councilman? Get some experience under your belt so that when you take that next leap and you decide to throw your name in the hat at the state level, people already know who you are. You have a track record, you have a resume, you have a reputation of getting things done, instead of, at a lot of times, guys like me, patriots out there, we get frustrated with the system. We want to make a change. So we decide that we're going to go drop, $100,000 or $200,000 running a campaign. And that's probably a spit in the bucket to run a campaign for congressman or woman or for senator position. But to throw all that money in there, run against an incumbent when you don't really have a real clear resume on getting things done as far as policy and procedures, it's probably a wise decision to maybe go through those lower levels to get that experience. But this is what I see, and I'll get your comment, your opinion on this, Darin.
Mm-hmm.
some people are just absolutely sick of politicians. Like, that is a good way to get the experience to get to that, maybe that state level. But a lot of people, especially since Trump came along, they don't want politicians. They want the rough guy who's a farmer or an electrician and doesn't have ties to politics. What's your thoughts on that? I mean, there's a route for everybody, and everybody has to make a choice. And I don't know if there's really a right way or a wrong way of doing it. But what's your comment about going that route versus just the good old boy who's not a politician that said, you know what, I want to run for governor?
Well, both have advantage depending on how depending on how you approach it. I mean, I can only speak to my own personal experience. If I were to run for something like, say, Senate, so see, let's just say theoretically I was going to run against Senator John Tester in the state of Montana. My resume is 28 years of military service, executive coach, a lot of command time, all these different things that definitely have its own resume build and its own resume look that people like, because it's a track record of success built a different way. I do agree that track record of success can be built other ways, and that is another way to do it is, librarian, commissioner, city, or county at the city level, doesn't matter. And I think that's important, and it can be a way for somebody else to build a resume, another way to get started. And this is why I think our youth needs to be involved in, 25, 26 years old, that those kinds of people, wherever they can, even if it's not a lot of time they can invest because they got kids or a job or whatever. If you can do something that meets like once every 2 weeks and build that resume and work your way up, I can't take away the value from that. It is there, and it should be accounted for. There's just two paths to the same end. And I will say I sympathize very heavily with the people who say I'm just sick of politics. Well, so am I. And frankly, I didn't want to have to do any of this. I'm hanging out in the state capitol building wearing something that a fully retired Army officer shouldn't have to wear. And I'm a registered lobbyist and become one of the people that I seem to have hated the most of my life, as a position, not a person, of course. But we were laughing about this today with the group I was meeting with. I said, I'm running around looking at people going, why is it so hard to get people to just do what is so obviously right? Well, they're looking at true lobbyist money from big donor organizations and various other things that are influencing them.
Yeah.
And my fear about all of that is if you don't have a core foundation or core values, those kinds of things can sway you. Like, there was a lot of people who voted against this bill for this abortion. We'll call it an abortion bill, but it's basically a right to privacy bill, reworking some of the language. It's an easy answer as far as what's right and what's wrong. But they switched. Why? Who knows? But it drives me crazy as a retired military officer to be walking around the halls, having to walk up to somebody and looking at them and going, this one's easy. You should just vote no because it's protecting children from mutilation, or it's doing the most obvious things. Why do I need to tell you that this is so obviously right? You should just know it.
Yeah. Wow. What a great perspective, Darin. And thank you for sharing that with us. So there you have it, folks. Pick a road, go up through the ranks at your local level, or like this military officer here, put your resume up against everyone else's and throw your name in the hat if that's what you choose to do. If God's calling you to do that, there ain't no wrong way of doing it. In my opinion, it just depends on the person. It depends on timing as well. Timing is everything. If you're in the right place at the right time, you're a farmer and you're sick of politics, and they're sick of the guy that's in office right now, and you got a good campaign, you very well, even as a hardworking farmer, could very well get elected into an office with no experience in politics whatsoever. And sometimes I think that's what it takes, and other times I think it takes going through your local level to learn how policies and procedures work, and so that you have that experience when you get in there. Well, let's shift gears here. I know there was something that you wanted to talk about when we first got on, and that's the stuff that's happening. You said there were some hot topics that you wanted to talk about Ukraine. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut you loose, Darin, and I'll have some questions along the way. But there's so much to report on nowadays. I was telling you off air, I'd have to be on 24/7 just to keep up with all the news that's coming out constantly each and every day. Of course, the cycle slows down at times, but for the most part, it's been ramped up for a couple years now. And Ukraine is obviously a hot topic.
Yes, it is, and I think that what the main issue for me is not necessarily if you were to just boil that down into a conflict between Russia and Ukraine. It comes down to how ready is America to deal with something like this, what we would call a near peer competitor, something along the lines of Russia or China. Well, maybe not so much Russia anymore. We'll see, but um, I think it's important that everybody who's listening, if you've got a congressman or senator there in your area that you can talk to, tell them that it's time for them to start asking the Department of Defense what kind of readiness reporting statistics the different military forces are reporting in their unit status reports. We are sending a lot of equipment from our frontline fighting forces over to Ukraine. And I do not believe it is getting reported accurately what we are truly capable of doing as a nation right now with our military. And I've got plenty of indicators that that is the case. People are typically reporting about, whatever number they're reporting, typically you can divide it and call it about a third of that is probably the truth, whether that's crews available to fly aircraft or machines ready to do a certain or specific operation or aircraft ready to fly. It doesn't matter what it is. Our Congress needs to dig into the Department of Defense and what we're reporting as our readiness, and they need to do it now, especially now that we're also saying we're going to send Abrams tanks over to Ukraine. What's important about that and the fact that we're training Ukrainians now in Fort Sill, Oklahoma to use our Patriot air defense batteries is that we're actually starting to take some of our most premier systems, armor, air defense, radars, drones, things like that, and we're handing it off to Ukrainians. Now, your average Ukrainian soldier, to them, it's a tool of war that they're going to apply the best they can. They'll learn how to use it in the end. But the problem is the fact that there are governments involved that are corrupt. Russia, Ukraine, U.S., all those governments are very corrupt. And if we don't think that these, I guess we'll call them high-level weapon systems or high-technology weapon systems like the Patriot are going to end up in the hands of our foreign adversaries, then I would call us naive at best. So now they're going to take these systems and exploit them and learn how we build them, how we train the people to use them, learn about how they can exploit what we had as a technological advantage that we may no longer have because Americans aren't going with these systems. They're going with Ukrainians. And they're not going to last long on the battlefield because what we're probably not sending is a supply chain behind them. So if we send Abrams tanks, Poland sends the Leopard tanks, Germany sends their tanks, all these different countries, are sending these systems into Ukraine. Where's the logistics and parts and all these things to support those? What you're really doing is you're taking an entire used car lot full of different types of vehicles that all take different parts and throwing them all in Ukraine saying good luck. In the meantime, China, Russia, Iran, and all these other adversary types of countries are going, good. We've never been able to take apart an Abrams tank before and see what is its strengths and what its weaknesses are. Now we can. Oh, and a Patriot air defense battery that are around the world in key locations, one of our most significant systems. We're just going to walk that into Ukraine and expect it to last. We're already seeing indications of things showing up on the black market and on other continents and countries. So it is inherent that everybody tell their congressman, their senator, whoever, that they need to fully look at this in the Department of Defense and find the truth. We need a full accounting.
I don't want to fearmonger at all here, but this is Darin is like a 30-year officer in the military. He's no joke when it comes to experience and the commands that he's had in the military. And thank you so much for your service, Darin. Really appreciate it because I couldn't do what I'm doing tonight with you if it wasn't for men and women like you who have sacrificed so much for this country. To your point, we left when when we had the worst withdrawal in American history under this president's watch from Afghanistan. Um, we left. I think it was something like, and the number is probably not exact, 85 billion dollars worth of equipment over there. We're talking helicopters. We're talking all kinds of military assets that we just left behind, and that was a huge concern of a lot of us 2 years ago. We left all that technology behind. Those guys go in there and just start taking everything apart and learning that technology. I hear a slight concern in your voice about this, that we are now sending over more of our technology over into this conflict with no support, meaning, those things break down or they get shot down or whatever. They're laying there on the side of the road for anybody to have at it, to gather intel, to gather information, data, learn our systems. I hear that concern in your voice. And then to turn around and think, whatever the true number is, we're sending over our surplus here in America. We're sending over rifles. We're sending over, I can't remember the name of the vehicles that shoot the rockets and stuff. I think it starts with an M. Anyway, we're sending over a lot of our stuff. What is left here for America? I mean, we've depleted our strategic oil reserves. I mean, if we got in the middle of a conflict or had something, God forbid, happen right here on our shores, some of the things I just feel personally, my opinion, like we've depleted so much right now that we kind of, I guess in boxing terms, we've let our guard down. Your thoughts on that?
No, that's exactly right. And I'll give you a great example because this one I know is a fact. There is a specific Army aviation unit that is composed of 15 aircraft at a base in the central U.S. They are reporting that they have enough crews to fly all 15 aircraft. The fact is they only have enough crews to fly 5. So these numbers get mixed up as they go up, and because commanders often, and I felt this pressure before, commanders who talk about issues and problems and seek solutions tend to get a lot of questions and a lot of pressure put on them to adjust things to make it look better on a slide in a bubble with a color in it. The reality is that if you tell them the truth, or if you tell them what they want to hear, often you just kind of slide on by and you don't have any problems and you look great. So it's a constant challenge within the Department of Defense. It's not a new thing. I won't put that something on in the last couple of years, but I will say everything that I'm hearing out of the force right now from very well-placed sources is saying that whatever they're telling you is wrong. And so by the time you stack up the fact that our readiness metrics are largely a facade, that we're attacking true patriots in the ranks through a woke culture, we're chasing them out of the military through a vax mandate, we're selling our technology or giving our technology away overseas to countries who we supposedly are supposed to like us, but just want our stuff and they don't care where it ends up, even if they make money off of it. We are basically, like you said, putting our guard down to the point where we're almost sitting on the table or sitting on the bench and at the corner of the ring saying, I don't even want to be involved in this fight and our enemies are going to come after us. What you may not have heard recently is that in the last few days, Russia's putting in a bid with the Taliban to buy a lot of the equipment that we left there. What are they going to do with it? Well, of course they're going to exploit it. Why? It's what we do.
It's what I would do. It's what I would do.
It's why you see things like BMPs and other types of Soviet tank, old Soviet era equipment and Russia type equipment at our bases around America. We take it and we exploit it. We should not be naive to think they're going to do the same thing to us. The difference is for us, we're just giving it to them and acting ignorant and going, oh, there's no way that's going to happen. No, it is happening. And you best deal with it now.
I got a question.
Owed an answer.
I got a question for you, and I don't know if you know the answer or can give the answer, but I guess my analogy for what you just said, playing a high level football, we used to look at game tapes every week of our opponent that we were going to play the very next weekend. You rewind those tapes, and back in the day it was VHS. You would rewind those tapes over and over and over again, looking for formations, what formations did the plays what plays led from the formations, whether that formation was a running play, a passing play, or a mixture of both. You studied those. So what you're saying to my audience tonight is when we leave those type of technology weapons and assets out there for our opponents to get their hands on it, that's exactly what they're doing. They're taking it in, they're breaking it down. It's just like in high school, breaking those plays down and figuring out, well, if the United States sets up like this, what's their move going to be? So if they have this type of technology, how can we counter it, react that technology, that weapon, asset, whatever? Here's the question. When you make the comment, and we're getting close to the hour here, when you make the comment that there could possibly be, and I'm just going to say possibly be, 15 of those fighter pilots, a group that are placed strategically, in my opinion, here in America for certain certain things that they need to take care of. And you're saying that possibly only a third of those planes would be manned by pilots. This is my question. And I don't know if you can answer this. I don't know if you want to answer this. I'm going to ask it anyway. Is it due to a lack of recruitment, that we're seeing a huge drop in recruitment in the military today, whether it be because they don't agree with the person in charge of the White House or because of the mandates that they enforced on the military? And so people just said, you know what, I'm not going to join the military. I'm not going to take that stuff. Or could it also be because of the pilots that were in the military? Because I heard this about commercial pilots and all kinds of things. They have taken that stuff, and now, unfortunately, they are at risk, and so they no longer can fly. Do you have a comment on that?
Well, I think it's all the above, and it's not like there's a single driving factor to the degradation of our military's readiness. There are just multiple factors, and some of those are the fact that we're not bringing them in because they don't want to join under this current environment. That's 100% correct. Some of them who do join under this environment are probably people who we don't want serving because they're okay with what's going on. Mm-hmm. There are those who are, especially in the experience world, 15, 18 years of service, that are getting driven out. Yep. Because they see what the vax mandate is doing. So not only you could have 100% of the military filled, but if you don't have any experience at all, what do you do with them? Mm-hmm. It's going to take a generation to fix that. And so all of these things, the woke cultures, the vax mandates, the leadership climate in general from the top, all of these are making a military that is significantly weaker than it should be. And there's a pressure to not paint a picture of accuracy about our military's readiness. And I don't want to be all doom and gloom. Believe me, our people are capable of doing a lot with very little. We always have. And so you can expect that professionalism is in the ranks, and that'll be the truth, and it'll always be the truth. But there seems to be a very concerted effort to intentionally fail horribly. And I don't know, I can't say 100% why because of motivations, but I tend to think that a lot of our leadership is unfortunately beholden to even to foreign nations, to the point where they'll sell out their own nation in order to maintain what they've got. Yeah. And I find that disturbing. And from a veteran's perspective who took an oath, and all veterans who took an oath, we shouldn't be willing to put up with that. And we need to take over all those offices and rebuild this nation and restore liberty the way we know it should be done.
Amen, Darin. You know, Trump came in, my belief, I don't think anybody can ever change it. He came in and he rebuilt the military and made it stronger in his 4 years. That I seen it. I believe it. I hear veterans like you talk about it. They said how great of a commander in chief he was and how he did care about the military and how he did build it up. I think the proof is in the pudding when you start looking at the numbers he spent on the military. And then you turn around 4 years later and you have this guy. And it just, my opinion, seems like it's obvious that he is trying to not just destroy America, but definitely destroy our military as well. And it's very concerning. So as we roll into final thought here, can you please, one more time, can you please tell the audience what it is that you feel like they should put on their list to do to reach out to their I can't remember if you said it was their congressmen or their senators, and talk about this readiness one more time, so that people who may have just jumped into this chat and is watching tonight, one more time, the readiness, because I think it's concerning. You've definitely put a red flag up for me.
Yeah, I would ask everybody to contact their congressman or woman and their senator working at the federal level, and tell them they need an honest and full accounting of our military's readiness across all services. Because I'm willing to put money down that they're not reporting it accurately. And I can't, obviously there are things within that kind of discussion that can get behind classification barriers that we can't talk about here and how they do all that reporting. And I won't get into that. But I think there is plenty of room for cause for concern, and that we as American taxpayers are owed an answer whether or not we are getting the truth about what we're able to do and what we're not able to do at this point in time. We deserve that at the very least.
Well, folks, that's a call to action from Darin here and me. I think that we should all reach out and just ask for that. And if they have enough people asking, maybe it will get some of them active and go, well, why are these people, why are my constituents asking this question? That's an odd question. And maybe they'll do a little bit of research and try to figure out what's going on, because it is concerning. So we'll roll into final thought, Darin. I truly do appreciate Restore Liberty giving me some time here. I know you guys are awful busy, and I sure appreciate the conversations that we've had. You guys always bring great information. Again, unity, education, and motivation. And I think you bring all three of them to the table. Those are the type of people I like to have on the show here, is people who are boots on the ground, action behind their words, out there in the fight, getting things done. So I just really appreciate that. And I'll give you a final thought.
Well, yeah, thanks again for having us on, Mike. It's always a pleasure to join you and talk to your audience and be able to impart our opinion. Not everything is necessarily always going to be fact, but we are willing to share our opinion, and we're willing to stand on it and at least have an honest discussion. But I also don't want to end on doom and gloom. I want to actually focus on the fact that what we have the pleasure of seeing in Restore Liberty is groups and organizations coming together across the country to fight for the Constitution and for liberty and for people's individual rights. And you may feel like you're in the swamp in the thick of a fight, a knife fight at your local level, and you probably are. Most people are, but you're not alone. These people and groups are all over the country right now. They're not putting up with this anymore. And win or lose, one thing they're not willing to do is not try. We need to be able to look ourselves in the mirror at the end of each day and say, I did everything I could, even if I lost. But I didn't just step back and watch it and then complain later. Our kids, our grandkids, our nation, and everything that we're made of deserve everything we have, no matter what it takes, to make sure that our future is one of liberty and we don't go down the route of Marxism and tyranny that so many nations have done throughout history. So thanks again for the time, but let's all keep our hope up and keep working hard.
Well, here's going to be my final thought. Folks, here you have it. To restore liberty to this country is going to require local action. It's going to require all of us, each and every one of us, to unite, to educate one another, and to motivate each other to get involved. That liberty tree, it's needing our help more than it ever has. And Darin can't do it by himself. His co-founder can't do it by himself. I can't do it by myself. It's going to require all of us to get out there and really be boots on the ground and be a positive message, positive reinforcement, moving the line forward, doing it in a respectful way, educating as many people along the way as we possibly can. So Restore Liberty is the mission. That's what Darin and his co-founder are all in. Every bit of it. They've served our country proudly. Both of them have, and now they're serving us again by boots on the ground out there, activating people, getting them charged up and in the fight to do what's right, which is to save this country and bring it back to a constitutional republic. So thank you, Darin. Appreciate it tonight. God bless each and every one of you. We'll catch you on the next one. Introducing MyPillow 2.0, all new MyPillow 2.0 fabric with temperature regulating technology. Sounds absolutely amazing. If you call in today or go to mypillow.com and use promo code LWN, it is buy one, get one free today. MyPillow 2.0. Don't go to bed without it.
Hoping for a sincere performance, but open to finding the moment, to finding out where I'm headed now. Looking for a sign of disaster, so I can make it there faster. I'm weighing the consequences out. I can see in all directions. It's all open to interpretation, but I see colors that are breaking from the other side, the other side. When I make mountains out of summer trails, when I buckle under all the details, I'll keep going till I make it to the other side, the other side. Can you tell me the secret of how you can take it or leave it? How you can blend in with the crowd? I'm so scared, so damn afraid to look. I'm so sick of talking. I'm wearing the words out, words out. I can see in all directions. It's all open to interpretation, but I see colors that are breaking from the other side, the other side. When I make mountains out of summer trails, when I buckle under all the details, I'll keep going till I make it to the other side, the other side. When it feels like everyone's out to get me, I see the river on the bank.